Hi, Ed Stetzer here. Excited to be able to share with you here at the Future Fit Conference. I have the privilege of serving as the Lausanne North America Regional Director. Excited what's going on in Lausanne, Canada. Seeing some new, exciting forward momentum and energy, but again, building on a heritage and a history that have seen Canadians engaged in God's mission for a long time. Of course, the question we're always asking is, and particularly now maybe in the English-speaking Western world, is how do we effectively join Jesus on his mission? In John 20:21, Jesus says, "As the Father has sent me, so send I you." And probably in the last few decades, in and around Lausanne and elsewhere, there's been kind of a great rethink going on, and hopefully building on what we've learned from the past, that we need more, not less, cross-cultural missionaries, that we need to show and share the love of Jesus to a broken and hurting world. But also the idea that we would participate as agents of God's mission, not because the church has a mission, but because God's mission has a church. That mission is rooted in the identity of God himself, that rediscovering those realities, well, leads us to a conversation, right? And so now as we look and we celebrate what God has done for decades upon decades in the Canadian context, we can look back to see how God's been at work. We can celebrate how God is at work. We also can look and say, are there areas where maybe our view of God's mission has distracted or detracted from key elements of what Jesus has sent us to do? And if so, how do we re-articulate those? How do we see sometimes and just honestly look at, across the English-speaking Western world, have our structures, have our patterns, have we inherited systems and approaches that have actually hindered the advance of the mission, hindered the work of God in the midst of a broken and hurting world? So I'm excited that you're there listening to diverse voices. I'm listening to really across Canadian context and beyond to say, how do we most effectively, most faithfully, and even most fruitfully join Jesus on his mission? And so I think ultimately that's the question that we're wrestling with, and I think that's good. So for all of us here as we're gathered together at Future Fit, let me say thank you for the good work that Alexander and the whole team is doing there in Lausanne, Canada. Our exhortation to you, the writer of Hebrews says we should provoke one another to love and good deeds. Well, as both partners and co-provocateurs, I want to provoke you to think deeply, draw from the well of experience that Canadian Christians have had for more than a century. Draw from the well that ultimately is the deep, rich teaching of Scripture and theology that undergirds all that we do, and draw from the well of missional thinking and missiological intent that helps us and enables us ultimately to kind of do what Isaiah did. And Isaiah was caught up in this vision in the book of Isaiah, and year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, and it goes through all this stuff in the temple, and there's columns, and there's smoke, and there's all these miraculous angels and more. But what Isaiah encountered was God, who asked him, well, who will go for us? Whom shall we send? And Isaiah said, "Here I am, Lord, send me." So my hope and prayer for you as you gather together here is that you might respond as Isaiah did. We don't know all that looks like in different contexts, because let's be honest, the Canadian context is remarkably different from different places. Red Deer is not the same story as the GTA. The Atlantic Canada is not the same as Vancouver. First Nations people and visible minorities are not all the same. And so the reality is, for all of us, we want to say, "Here I am, Lord, send me." Then we ask God's gracious wisdom. He promised us he'll give it to us in James. We ask without doubting. We ask for God's gracious wisdom to ask, how might we be faithful and fruitful to the mission Jesus has sent us on in Canada, and ultimately beyond to the whole world. Glad you're gathered together, praying for you, and appreciate the work of Lausanne, Canada.